today is a recent development which is applicable to non-profit organizations, charitable trust or institutions like that. Probably this is one of the most loved institution by any finance minister. Uh, and if you look at the finance bills or budgets for last 15 to 20 years, will not find any or a gap would be there where one of the other amendment is not been made relating to the charitable organization. Why the amendments are so many with the charitable organizations, whether it is loved by the finance minister or they are trying to do one or the other things. But irrespective of the finance minister, the changes are always been there. And I find one of the source for these changes is the CNAG report or the reports of the Public Accounts Committee. Public Accounts Committee is a committee of the parliamentarians, and usually the chairman of this committee is the leader of the opposition. They always found out one or the other things with the charitable organization, and it seems the source or rationale behind the various amendments is the reports of the CNAG as well as the PAC report. The CNAG conducts the audit of the India as well as the tax revenue authorities regularly every year. Few of the reports I have found out where there are certain observations which is made by the CNAG, because there are various other observations also made in other reports, but these I thought this will be in the 13, 17 and 19 are the important observations which has been made. And in light of these observations, we'll look at the amendments which has been created, which has been passed by the legislature in the Income Tax Act. So if you just look at a report number 20 of 13, it says that the grant or approval of registrations are without adequate documents. There is irregularity in exemptions of the trust, and as a result of which the huge surpluses are created consistently. Application of income is made in the prohibited modes of the investments and non-monitoring of the foreign contributions received by the trust. We are not here to analyze whether these observations are right or wrong, but these are just the statements or the facts which has been identified by the CNAG, and we just dwell upon those observations. In report of 2017, they again reiterated certain points that exemptions of the trust is allowed as there is no performance or specific bar on the denial of such exemptions. So whenever the exemptions is claimed by the charitable organization, there is no performance audit is done or no performance is reviewed by anyone, but they become eligible to claim the exemptions. They're entitled for exemptions even if they are not complying with the governing acts under which the trust has been set up. For example, in Maharashtra, trusts are set up under the Maharashtra Public Charitable Trust Act. Exemption allowed to the trust hospitals engage in non-charitable hospitals. There is overlapping of exemption to the under section 1023C and section 11. Consider the adopting the global best practice in maintaining the database of the exempt entities. Donations are not watched properly. An irregular allowance of depreciation or expenses resulting into a double deduction. Again, report of number 9 of 2019, it again points out certain similar observations that there is diversion of income or property to a group, trust or institutions, and consider the application of the income. So trust A, trust B are both related, may be related because of the trustees, and the money is moving from one trust to another trust. Exemption granted for the activities which are not charitable in nature. There is lack of monitoring of the investments made by as specified by the law. Exemption to SSC whether voluntary contributions including foreign currency donations are considered as corpus without specific directions to the donor. And there is non-cancellation of registration where activities are not in accordance with the provisions of the Act. From these reports, you can observe that the CNAG has always tried to point out one or the other things. The institutions, the charitable institutions are very important part of India from the two point of view. One is the charity is imbibed in our blood, and each people, irrespective of his income, try to do charity in one form or other form, and person following irrespective of his faith always engage in the charitable activity. But it seems that the CNAG has always seen the charitable organizations or not-for-profit organizations with the colored glasses. There is also a Public Accounts Committee report, 104th report of which was published in July 2008. It says that that it expresses a concern that the public charitable trusts are being used to run commercial activities which are not for profit and has repeatedly violated the provisions of the Income Tax Act. The result of which the committee is concerned over the serious nature of such violation and failure of the Income Tax Department to monitor whether the trusts are fulfilling the objectives under which they are established. Also ensure that there is no abuse of concession which is being granted by such trust. So, the Public Accounts Committee, which has been set up, where the members are the representative of the people, they also observe that the charitable trusts are carrying out certain activities which are for the profit, and there is no proper monitoring to these things. But there has always been a debate whether what is the profit, what is the business, because the Act has provided that if the business which is incidental to the activities of the trust, then and the profit or surplus which is being earned by that business is used for charitable purpose, then that such business is allowed to be carried forward. Similarly, if some businesses or some activities are being done and there is a surplus, charitable organization, when there is charitable organization, doesn't mean that all the activity it will do carry for the no cost or nil cost or at loss. It can generate surplus out of it, but condition is that surplus should be used for the objects of the trust. So when the institutions are generating a surplus, doesn't mean that they are the profit-making entity, and their exemption should be barred. They should be barred from the exemptions. Even the Supreme Court has also held in various decisions that activity which has been done and the surplus is generated out of such activities doesn't mean that they are for the generation of the profits. And in view of this, but still, you'll find amendments are there made to in line of this observation which is made by the CNAG as well as the Public Accounts Committee. Just have a glance of the amendments which has been made in last 6 years. In 2016, the exit tax was introduced. So whenever some trust is registered and there is a trust is derecognized or there is the exit from the charitable trust and forms the normal organization, then they need to pay a tax and the market value of all the assets of the trust to be paid. In 2017, they have made the change that whenever there is a change in the objects of the trust, there has to be a mandatory registration should be done by this trust. Return filing should be made mandatory as per a timeline specified in section 139(1). If return is not filed as in the timeline of 113 and 1, then it is not entitled to claim exemption, because earlier 113 and 4 was also considered as a belated return, was also considered as a return file within the time limit. Then the donations, if made in cash, will not be entitled to the ATG. The restriction was made that you can't make a donation exceeding rupees 2,000 in the modes other than in the by way of other than cash. Then restrictions on the corpus was also introduced. In 2018, the restriction was introduced that if no withholding tax or TDS has not been deducted or payment which is made in cash exceeding the specified limit, then a disallowance under section 40A IA and 40 capital A3 will also apply to the trust. In 2019, the section 12 AA registration and cancellation of trust was modified, and the same was also extended to section 1023C. Recently, whatever changes has been made to section 11, the similar changes are also been introduced for the purpose of the institutions which are specified under section 1023 capital C. In 2020, the provision of re-registration of the trust under section 1023C, 12AB, and ATG has been introduced with effect from the 1/4/20. It was with effect from 1st October 2020, but however, because of the pandemic, this has been extended. Then the single registration it lays down that when the trust is entitled for benefit under section 1023C as well as under section 11, they have to choose only one, and they should be registered under only one of the section and not for the both sections. In 2021, restrictions on corpus donation has been introduced. Then repayment of loan not to be treated as an application, or the expenditure made from the loan should not be considered as application. Then carry forward of deficit is not allowed, and new compliance of the donations. So largely what we will look into the amendments which are made in 2020 and 2021. The access application. We'll say that the provision of section 11 to 13 are the code in itself, and the computation of income is governed by this set of sections only, and not by any other set of sections. So if the trust is having certain income which is exempt under section 10, so those exemptions are not entitled under section when you are claiming the exemption under section 11. Similarly, for the computation of the income, you are not required to go through each and every heads of income or go through those provisions to compute the income. For example, in case of interest income, if there is a TDS, so 100 rupees is the interest income, TDS is rupees 10. So trust has received rupees 90 only. So it has been held judicially that income to be computed on the commercial principles. TDS is not received by the trust. It will be received only when the refund is received by the trust. So its income is rupees 90 and not rupees 100. So this states that section 11 to 13 has to be complied with for the purpose of computing the income, and you are not required to go through any other provisions which has been specified for the computation of income. So in view of this, the set-off and carry forward of losses which are applicable to the entities otherwise is not applicable to the charitable trust or institution also. It may happen that in some year there is excess application, that is a loss, and some year you are not able to apply 85% of the income. So there is a surplus in that year. Now the expression 5 to section 11 has been added, which bars the set off and carry forward of expenses of earlier year. you can see on the screen the example has been shared that there is excess application in the year 1819, that is a 400 rupees, that is a 400 is a loss, and there is income of 300 in 1920 after claiming all the. So in this view, if you set off the excess application of earlier years, so 300 minus 400, then there is a nil income, and 100 is again excess application which can be carried forward in the subsequent years, and you don't require to consider any other provisions there. But now, and this has also been accepted, and this is the law which has been made by the various tribunals and the high courts, and recently Supreme Court has also approved the same thing. But now it has been stated that from the assessment year 20 to 23, such excess cannot be set off against the subsequent year. So whatever excess is there of the earlier years will not be allowed to set off, and whatever you need to look at each year independently and compute the income, whether it is a surplus or a deficit. Second amendment is relating to the application of income, application out of the borrowings. So currently, whenever you apply some towards the object of the trust, there is any application of any sums for the object of the trust, whether it is out of income or out of borrowed funds, is considered as the application. And whenever you repay the loan, is also considered as the application. And I believe this provision is rightly so, because when you are claiming any application and there is also loan and then the repayment of loan is out of, ultimately this both things happens out of income. You can't have the loan in a vacuum, or you can't have application of any income in vacuum. But this is not been liked by the department again. So whenever there is a application, so if you borrow some and you make application of the income out of that borrowed funds, it will not be considered as application that year. However, when you repay the borrowings, it will be considered as the application. So expenditure pursuant to the borrowing of funds is not application, but only repayment of loan is considered application. Third amendment, which is there for the corpus donations. So currently there is a blanket exemption with respect to the any receipt which is there in the nature of corpus. But now this blanket the exemption is now proposed, or which has been now not been allowed. It says that whenever any corpus donation is received by the trust or any institution, that corpus donation is required to be invested in the modes as specified under section 11(5). And any application out of that corpus will not be considered as application of income. But whenever that investment is replenished, then it will be considered as application, because it is said that this replenishment of the investment is out of current income, and hence you can claim the deduction or application. It was believed by revenue that whenever corpus is received, the people use that corpus and claim the exemption with respect to the donations which were otherwise required to be used 85%. But whether you use the corpus or other donation, ultimately what is required to be seen was only 85% is application or not. And if the 85% is applied, then there should not be taxable income. But now it has been said that uh, the corpus received has to be invested in the mode specified under section 11.5. The time limit for making an investment is not been specified, whether I do it immediately, 15 days, 6 months, 12 months, before end of the financial year or before the due date of filing return of income. Because we have various other examples under the elsewhere in the Income Tax Act where investment is required to be made before the end of the financial year or within 6 months or within the due date of filing return of income. However, here it is not specified a time limit. So, in my view, a better view would be that you make a investment before the end of the financial year. Another thing is that
Paras
section
bhai,
11.
Paras bhai, sorry to interrupt. There is some comments by the participants. Your sound is not that proper. Can you come near the laptop or maybe use a microphone if at all possible?
Okay, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it better now?
I feel it is better now.
Okay. So time limit of making investments has not been specified. But if you look at the section 11.5, one of the provisions says that any deposit in any account in the scheduled bank or the specified bank is one of the more specified under the uh, 11.5. So any type of account, so that account can be deposits account, that can be a saving account, that can be a current account, unless until there's a specific bar to make a deposit in some types of bank accounts, the investments will be. So in that scenario, whenever you are receiving a corpus donation by way of check and that is deposited into bank account, can you say that once I deposited that money in my bank account, it should be considered as an investment in the mode as specified under the section 11.5. So there is no clarity on this, but I believe the commercial way how you look into it should be considered and not the very narrow or micro view to be taken. In our example that 100 rupees is received as a corpus, it has been invested in the mode specified in section 11.5. Hence, there is no taxable income and there is no application also. Subsequent year, you are withdrawing, there is a premature withdrawal of the investments has been withdrawn to the extent of 60 and the asset is acquired for 60. And so whenever the application is made out of the corpus, it is not considered as application. Hence, nothing to be considered. Subsequent year, there is another receipt of corpus of 20 and you are replenished the investment or to the 60. So current year you received 20, replenishment of 60. So 60 minus 20 is what you are actually net replenish, because 20 is out of the current year's corpus donation. In view of this, the whatever you have spent in the earlier year and to the extent of 40 will be considered as the application in the year 24-25. These are the three major amendments which are applicable to the while computing the income of the charitable trust or institutions. Now we come to the other amendment, which is a procedure in nature, but though procedure in nature, my taxability of income depends on this procedure thing. The registration and re-registration, what is being provided. what the explanation in the finance explanatory memorandum of the Finance Bill 2020 stated that the process of registration under Section 12AA or 1023C is needs the improvement considering the difficulty which has been faced by the trust, and whether the activities are being actually carried out or not also need to be reviewed. So in absence of regular check by the revenue authorities, there is always a roving inquiry which has been made by the tax officers, and as a result of which the all registrations, all registered trusts are facing difficulty. So there is an adversarial regime, and in order to stop this adversarial regime, the new procedure for registration has been introduced, which includes the re-registration also. Under the process, the trust is all trust institutions which are there registered under Section 12A, 12AA, or 1023C, Section 80G are required to be re-registered again. And the earlier registration for the 12AA was a once in lifetime registration, but now it is been stated that this registration is there for only for the period of 5 years. So every 5 years you need to go through the process of a registration. It is like that you need to get yourself reviewed, or you need to pass through the Agni Pariksha every 5 years, so that the tax officer can review the activities what you have done in the last 5 years and whether those activities were there in line of the provisions of the act or not. You see this, if you recollect the observations which were made by CNAG as well as the Public Accounts Committee, that the activities are not being reviewed properly, exemptions are granted even if they are not entitled for all those things. It seems that considering those observations, the provision for registration and re-registration has been introduced. So there is no lifetime registration, and you need to get those registration always at the passage of close of 5 years. So changes are applicable to the Section 1023C, 12AB, then donation received under Section 80G, and similarly donation received under Section 35(1). The various forms has been introduced for the making application under Section 10 for registration under Section 1023C, as well as 11 or 12AB and 80G. The form for all this purpose, the common form has been introduced, which is the 10A and 10AB. This is for the purpose of the making application for the registration, and the certificate to be issued in the form 10AC or 10AD. Form 3CF is introduced for the purpose of registration of registration under Section 35(1) of the respective donations which are received under Section 35. And with respect to Section 80G, the new forms be introduced 10BD and 10BE. We shall look into all of these forms or all of these provisions as we move ahead. Participants may have a questions, I believe, and we can. I will try to allocate at least half an hour for the questions which is not been covered during my presentation. You can put the questions in the question and answer, and I'll request the organizers to take those questions at the subsequently. So now everyone is required to make an application irrespective of the trust. So all trusts which are registered will make the application. The there are separate scenarios has been specified, and the time limits has been specified for making an application. So currently we look into it, one time window which is there, the all trust to be registered. They are required to make application by 30th June 2020, 30th June 21, unless until due date is extended. Considering the pandemic, if the many people are not able to do a make application, the CBDT may grant one-time extension to this provision by another 3 months or so. But this all depends upon the various factors. I will suggest that don't wait for the last day. At least file the application uh, as early as possible, because cost of non-filing the application before due date is huge. So application can be made in the form 12A, or application to be under the in the form 10A. The form A, there is one more application, there is a residual category also to be done. It's covered under the form 10A only, where the application is to be made 1 year prior to the commencement of the previous year. So exemption is granted. So if you make, for example, if you are making an exemption under this category, say in the month of April 21, the exemption shall be granted from the financial year, not the 21-22, but for the financial year 22-23. There are 4 more categories which are there for the, which is applicable to Form 10AB. Whenever trust is already registered under Section 12AB, and the period of such registration is due to expire, then application is required to be made before 6 months from the period of expiry. Where the trust or institution is registered provisionally, so that is the last category what we have seen, when the provisional registration is granted. In that scenario also, you have to make application before 6 months before the expiry of such registration, or within 6 months from the date of commencement of the activity. When the trust has become inoperative under Section 11(7), first proviso, then the application to be made within 6 months from the commencement of the within 6 months prior to the commencement of the assessment year. As I stated earlier, now the option to claim deduction is under Section 1023C or under the Section 1112 only. You can't claim both objects, both registrations or exemptions simultaneously. So in case you are claiming any exemption, you have to choose only one category. And once you are registered under the Section 12A, and you also get registration under Section 1023C, then the exemption under Section 11, in the exemption under Section 11(7), under Section 12AB becomes inoperative, and as a result of which there is a you need to fall under the Section 10. You have to claim the exemption under Section 1023C only. So whenever you say you are operative now, again you have become inoperative because of the first proviso to subsection 7 of Section 11, you get the 6 months from the prior to the commencement of assessment year to make an application. It's a very important point here need to be seen, that you get the 6 months, you need to make application prior to the commencement of assessment. So if I am not following, if I am getting a registration under I am getting inoperative, say in the assessment year, in the financial year 21-22, so I have to make the application before 1st of October, so that I can continue my exemptions. Otherwise, I will lose the exemption under Section 11 as well as Section 23, and my income will subject to the taxation. One more category which has been specified here is the 30 days from the date of adoption of the or the amendment in the modification. So whenever you are carrying out any amendment in the constitution document, then within 30 days from such adoption or modification, you need to apply for the re-registration. So here the words used are the adoption or modification. So whether you have to consider the adoption whenever you trust undergoes such process or when it is approved by the regulatory authority. In my view, in case you are not allowed to entitled to, you are not, even though you have carried the amendment, but such amendment is not approved by the regulatory authority, and in absence of that approval, you are not entitled to carry those activities. And in such scenario, the 30 days should run from the date when the approval is granted and not from the date when the amendment has been carried out. And the last category, there you have to make 1 month prior to the commencement of the previous year. There can be the various issues here may arise. For example, the trust was say registered under the section 12 AA, say in the last week of March, because you would have made the application somewhere in the month of September. So your registration is granted. If you have not made the application, you would have lost the exemption for the financial year 2021. Hence, the application was made, and you are granted the registration, say on the 26th of March. Now, these provisions are coming into effective from 1st of April 2021. So, whether I require to do apply for re-registration here or no, in my view, you need to apply for re-registration, even though you were registered just a few days prior to commencement of this section. Say in the month of April, there were some objects were amended, and in the month of April, you were granted the registration for the from the regulatory authority, the object amendment, and say that may happen in the month of April or May 2021. Whether I should register under the first category, that is within, because I also require to do a registration under the subclause 1 within 3 months, that is the 30th September 21. And I also require to do a registration within 30 days from the date of making amendments. So both provisions are overlapping with each other. Whether I require to do both registrations or I should do a registration under only one category. Certainly the category of applying under section till subclause 1, that is by 30th September, 30th June 21 category may not be suffice. You need to make application under within 30 days in the form 10AB, because both are separate forms are there, and both requirements are separate are there when you are making an application. In my view, for a better view, in order to safeguard yourself, you make application in form 10A first, and then within the 30 days from the date of amendment or modifications, you make a application also in the form 10AB. So probably we may require to carry both applications simultaneously or at the gap of some time. Otherwise, you may lose certain exemptions. It is stated that the trust is required to, section is provided that whenever you are provisionally registered, and then you have to make apply for re-registration 6 months before the expiry of such registration, or within 6 months from the commencement of activity. The commencement of activities has not been specified under the law. So what can be commencement of activity? If you look at we have similar provision, what is the commencement of business, whether the decisions which are pertaining to those commencement of business will apply here, there can be a question mark. This may depend on the facts and circumstances. Whether receipt of donation is my commencement of activity, whether the spending of the donation or creation or for certain purpose uh, as specified in my trust deed is commencement of activity. I have received say 1 lakh rupees as donation. I spent rupees 1000 rupees for the purpose of my object. I applied 100,000 rupees. So whether application of 1000, though the amount is very minuscule, will amount to the application. The opening of bank account will become my commencement of activities. There are no real answers to it unless until CBDT comes up with some clarificatory note. But till the time the such clarificatory note is there, you may consider the provisions which are more beneficial in the to the trust, uh, which will try to say that my activities have commenced the activities. So whether I took the some premises on rent will may become the commencement of activity. Whether I have some employed some employees, can it be said that I have commenced my activities or not? So there are many questions but no answers. But in my view, you may take the thing which is more beneficial to the institution, because it may happen that I took the provisional registration, say on the first week of April. Thereafter, I issued the donation uh, and I applied the donation for the benefit of the certain beneficiaries as per the provisions of my trust deed. Say in the 30th of April, since whether and that is said to be a activity commencement of my activity. If that is so, then within 6 months, that is by 31st of October, I should make an application. Uh, Again, application to the income tax authorities in form 10 AB, saying that I have now commenced the activity. You have granted me the provisional registration. So now you got the provisional registration is for a period of 3 years, and now you take me to the normal registration of 5 years. Why this provision? Because there has always been a tug of war between the trust as well as the department, that when you make an application, the department always says that kindly prove that you are commenced the activities. You give me the proof, you give me some documents uh, for so that I can grant you registration. The time and again the courts have held that in order in order to entitle for such registration, you are not required to you are not required to commence the activities for the purpose of granting the registration, and hence in order to overrule so those decisions, it seems that amendment which has been there under the section 12 AB says that you need to make application within 6 months from the end of the uh, uh, from the end of the month in which you have commenced the activities. What are the documents which are required to be attached along with the application? You require the copy of instrument under which the trust, society, or company is set up. If there is no such trust, such document, then you need to have some other document which will state that the uh, it was the trust was established. For example, uh, in case of various old trusts, the trusts are oral and they don't have any trust deed or certain something like that. In that view, what to be attached? Can you attach the? Can you say that earlier the registration certificate which was granted under section 12A was there? it should be considered as my a document which is evidencing the creation of trust. Whether the copy of bank account can be said to be its evidence that my trust was created or not. So this all will depends on the facts of the circumstances, and or it can be also memorandum which gives a recording. The creation of trust can also be that's one of the document which you can uh, be supply or you can uh, supply at the time of making application. The copy of registration certificate which is granted by the registrar of companies or registrar of firms or societies or registrar of public trust is also required to be submitted. Uh, there is a category of not-for-profit making organizations which can be registered under the Indian Partnership Acts also. Hence, the Registrar of Firms is being used here. Then the copy of FCRA certificate, if the FCRA was received earlier. Then the copy of existing order under section 12A, 12AA, 12AB, 1023C or ATG as the case may be also required to be attached. The issue here may arise that so there are certain old trusts, they have registration number, but now they don't have those certificate under section 12A or 12AA or 1023C or ATG. And they are either those certificates are misplaced, mutilated. So in that scenario, what document to be applied or what document to be attached here with? There is really no answer. Can you make an application and with the income tax department under the Right to Information Act and ask them to issue a registration certificate, to issue the copy of my registration certificate, or under normal provisions, you can apply to the income tax officer to issue the duplicate copy of registration certificate so that you can apply along with the application. This can be probable answers. Under right to application, it is applied, it is right to information, then there is a time bound disposal of the application which can happen within 30 days. But if you apply for a duplicate certificate, there cannot there is no time bound period and you may miss the bus. In case you are not having such documents, I will suggest that you may apply a letter, you may attach a letter stating that this certificate is not available at the juncture with us. But you can certainly apply some document, some communication which is there from the income tax department in which the 12AA, 12A registration or ATG registration is mentioned, and state that in absence of this certificate which we are having it, we are attaching here with these documents. I believe that should be doable, because if you don't have certificate and if you don't apply by the window which is there up to 30th June or within the extended period, there can be a grave difficulties, and probably you may lose exemption on the income for the financial year 21-22 itself. Because then you need to make an application under residual category, and that residual category, the application, the deduction will be available to the registered institution only in the from the subsequent financial year. Or if you miss the window, can I make application and there can be a provisional registration granted to me or not? That is another issue which may come. Because provisional registration is granted only with respect to the institutions which are not commenced the activities. And in this case, the activities already commenced. So whether you need to go for the application where the provisional registration of such trust can be done or not. In case of such institutions which is there for present for more for the period more than a year, you need to attach the financial statements along with the application. The maximum period for which you require to attach is the 3 years. However, no such document is required to be attached if you have filed a return for all 3 previous years for which the return of income was due. For the assessment year 21-22, return of income is not due. Hence, you need to file the return of income till the assessment year 2021 or for the financially ended up to 2020. If all returns are been filed, then you are not required to make attach the financial statements. Further, suppose you have filed the return of income for the out of 2 years. You have not filed return of income for the financial year 2020, 2020, this 2019-2020. And in that scenario, I believe you will require to need to attach the provisional financial statements because you have not attached the financial statement for all 3 last financial year. So you also make a provisional, the provisional financials should be made till the date of making an application. Is not till there is no cutoff period available. Suppose you are making an application, say on the 13th of May, then those provisional accounts need to be drawn till the 13th of May. It's a very, the provisions, this provision is very cumbersome and burdensome on the on the trust, but this is what been specified under the law. So can you say that I'll file the application with the available financial statements and the financial statement till the date of the making application, I will file it subsequently as and when the information is called by the specified regulatory authority for the purpose of granting registration. This all certified true copies are there. This need to be certified by the SSC himself, unless in past whenever you are making an application. So, for example, the trust deed or a certificate of registration or a memorandum required to be get certified from the applicable regulatory authority, be it the registrar of companies or registrar, charity commissioner, or any other such authorities. So now that is not required. So to that extent, this is the welcome amendment. So you're not required to go to those regulatory authorities and obtain the certified true copies from them. Further, in case when the application is been made under the other provisions, the 2 more requirements are there. Other than this is the text which is there in the dark color is applicable only for the application which is required to be made by 30th of June. The other 2 information lighter color will apply for the other applications, where you also need to attach the order of rejection in case earlier rejection was there under section 12A, 12AA, 12AB, 1023C. However, there is no clarity that though some rejection was there, then the such institution has went to the appellate forum and restored and got the and this rejection application cancelled. So in that scenario, should I also attach those documents, or should I only attach the grant of only the rejection or the grant of registration? In my view, when you are applying for the order of grant of rejection and it was such rejection order was rejected by the higher appellate authorities, you need to attach that document also. Whenever SSC is having any undertaking or any business income under section 11.4 or 11.4A, then the accounts of such a business along with the tax audit if applicable is also required to be attached herewith. There are certain issues. What I'll do, in next few minutes, I'll run through the form as such. So this will throw a better light to the participants. Allow me to share my another screen for this purpose. We may look into the form 10A first. The PAN number, this is not to be filled manually. This PAN number will be the automated generated because the login is to be done through your normal login ID on the income tax portal. And once you log in and open this form 10A, the section will PAN number will automatically will be coming to that thing. Then the section code. So the item number 2, section code is the code because there is a common form which is required to be applied everywhere, and hence this section code becomes more important. So under what section you are making the application under this form. So these are the basically you have to choose the 12 categories which has been specified here, and the category is that whether you are applying for the existing trust within 3 months or under residual category, be it a trust registered under section 12A or the institution registered under section 1023C or the under ATG. So 2 categories which we have seen, the first registration or residual category. So this all constitutes 12 categories, and on the basis of the category what you will choose, other forms, other part of the form will become active, and you have to fill the information relevant to that section or relevant to that provision only. Nature of activity, you have to specify whether charitable, religious or charitable cum religious activity is there. Type of constitution can be a trust, society, company or others. You have to tick one of the things. Whether the trust is established under any instrument, yes or no. If yes, then you require to attach the instrument. If no, then you have to attach any other instrument which will justify or which will say the creation of trust was done or institution was done. Then date of incorporation, creation or registration. There are 3 categories what has been mentioned. Whether you have to mention all 3 dates or only one date or which date. In my view, date which is the prior date can be considered, but however that date should be in sync with the date what would have mentioned in the PAN application. If that is not sync with the PAN application, probably there would be a mismatch and issues may arise because the trust would have created say on the 1st April 1961, but registration was done subsequently because initially registration was not required to be done. So that you are not done registration under the respective act, or if even if the application is done subsequently, but date of registration may be different from date of creation. In that view, I believe the date of creation should be considered. Date of incorporation will generally go to the society or company, and though company may also get the date of registration also, but the incorporation date and registration date may be common in that case. You also require to mention the registration number or incorporation number, the number which is being allotted by the respective regulatory authority. Then you have to mention the regulatory authority who has registered, you are granted registration. Then objects of the applicants, As such, we are not required to reproduce the objects which are mentioned in the trust deed. You have to choose the objects. There are categories which have been mentioned here. That is the religious, relief to poor, education, medical relief, yoga, prevention of environment, prevention of the monuments, or advancement of any other objects of general public utility. You have to choose those objects out of this. Uh, and basically, this is the definition of section 215. If the trust is also registered under Darpan portal is a portal which is being maintained by the Niti Aayog, where they try to maintain the database of all the registered not-for-profit organizations. And if you are registered for that, then you have to mention the number here uh, uh, of the Darpan portal or FCRA. Even the income tax registration, which is there for the section 12A, 12AA, ATG 1023C, will also require to be mentioned. So once you click the number of registrations, the number of rows will be added automatically, and this form become interactive, and then you can add those things. Registration in Darpan portal is important, or it's mandatory in case you are obtaining any donation from the institutions which are there, with institutions from the government institutions. So 7A, 7B, 7C will give the information of the registration number, date of registration, then authority granting such registration, and the date of which registration is effective. So date of which registration is effective is the first registration. If you have got the multiple, so for example, under FCRA, if you have received the multiple registration, then you have to mention the first registration under FCRA and not the latest effective registration number. Similarly, for the income tax also, if you are registered under the 12A or 12AA, then you have to write the first registration number, ATG, because up to 2009 or so, ATG was also regularly renewed. So you need to mention the first registration of ATG and not the latest registration number of ATG. If you are claiming exemption under section 1021, then you have to specify whether you are claiming exemption under section 1021 or not. Then details of the author, founder, settler. I missed one point. Whether that application of registration should also be in past when it was rejected, you have to apply this information also, which was rejected. As I stated earlier, it should be done along with the, in case the rejection order is rejected by the higher appellate authority, you should attach the document also along with here. Whether the trust deed contains the clause, whether trust is irrevocable or not. The one more point which was there earlier, which I missed it since, that, you know, when you're making application, in case your trust doesn't have the irrevocable clause, to mention yes or no. You cannot write yes, even though trust does not have irrevocable clause. This clause will not applicable to the society or company, because the trust is settled by the settler, and it can only have the revocable clause. In case you don't have irrevocable clause in the trust deed, whether the your application will be rejected, there is no idea on this. If you look at the section section 78 B, subsection B of the Indian Trust Act, it says that if in case of a trust, the revocation can be made only by settler of a trust, and in case of a trust, there is no settler is no more alive, and if there is a no provision in the application for the in the trust deed for the revocation, it is irrevocable trust. Still, the department can insist that you should have the provision. This requirement is coming also flowing from the requirement of the objections which is raised by the CNAG in the uh, CNAG report. But when the such report was created, there was no provision relevant similar to the section 115 TD, which is the exit tax for the trust. So if the trust has required to be exited, or if the trust is no more, or it is required to be converted into profit making, or it's a revoke trust, and the money is transferred to the beneficiaries, though that is in violation of provisions of the act. In that scenario, whatever the assets are there, the market value of that asset required to determine, and you require to pay tax on that. That is what exit tax is been required to be paid. So in view of this provision, still the uh, provision relevant to the trust of irrevocability is required. In my view, this provision is not required, especially when in light of the provisions of section 115 TD. Further, we also need to mention the details of all authors, founders, settlers, trustees, members of society, uh, and the members of the governing board of the director and the shareholders uh, in exceeding the 5%. Here there is a, I believe there is a huge anomaly in drafting this provision. Uh, you need to mention whether the trust has a settler as well as author or founder. You need to mention all the details, or it's only one detail is required to be mentioned. And there is unique identification number is also required to be mentioned. For example, if the settler is no more now, and unique identification number is required to be mentioned. What is the unique identification number? Unique identification number is relevant, is the what we can say is the PAN number of the that person. In absence of PAN, Aadhaar number. And if the founder is not having both of these numbers, then it can be a tax identification number if the other country. So when the such person is a foreign resident, passport number, elector's photo ID, driving license number, or ration card number. So probably one of the document is already available, but in case the person is, in case of old trust and the such settler is no more, still we require to mention the details or not. Uh, there is no clarity on this. Then members of the society, for example, Chamber of Tax Consultant is also a society, and if the and it has 4,000 members. So whether you need to deal the give details of all 4,000 members, I believe there should be a, it's not the members, but it should be members of the governing body only should be considered, and not the members of society as such should be mentioned. So that's the then the address, mobile number, email ID. Whether this you need to uh, give this details mandatorily or no, there is no clarity. Whether I should give only details and I can skip some other details, and non-provision of such information, would it go against the trust, and that can be we'll see the uh, consequences for not providing details wholly or partially. Further, you also required to give details of the beneficial owners in case the trust has been settled or by the persons, non-natural persons. For example, if the trust is settled, NGO or trust is settled by the say corporate entity, and it is as a CSR arm of that corporate entity. In that, and if there is a shareholding, if there is a shareholder in the company, then you have to give details of the person who is holding the beneficial owners of those beneficial shareholder. In case of a company which is limited by guarantee as well as limited by the shares, and there is a share capital in that company, in that view, that person who holds the share is also a person who is the founder or who is the settler, who is the founder or who is the director of that company. Whether the information is also required to be given of the same person who is a director as well as shareholder. Here, in my view, yes, it's required to be provided here also. Item number 10 is that for the last 3 financial years financial statement, if you click the 11 to 20 getting triggered, if you mention and this is not triggered, you is not required to apply, required to making application is required. So this is the as stated earlier, this is very may put the situation which is cumbersome for the tax for the entity. If you are required to mention that, you have to mention the corpus, you have to mention long-term liability, then you have to mention the funds or reserves and surpluses or other than corpus, other liabilities, land building and other fixed assets. Then what are the investments which are made as per the provision of section 11.5? So if the investments are not in consonance with the provision of section 11.5, whether I am not required to mention here is the question mark. Whether the investments or deposits other than 17, so that which is not in line with the investment of section 11.5 mentioned in the item number 17 and other assets. Besides this, under the 20 item number 20, which is there for the income side, this is for assets and liabilities, also required to be specified only if you are not able to provide the financial statements for the last 3 years. And if you are not able to provide, then you have to give category or classification of the receipts from the central government, state government, grant received from under the CSR, other grants, other income, and total. The 21A and 21B is applicable only in respect of when the application is made under section 80G5 with respect to the whenever under 80G there is a condition that I cannot spend more than 5% for the objects relevant to religious purpose. So hence that asking information what is the expenditure which has been incurred for religious purpose, and each of the financial, what was the total income, what is the expenditure, and percentage of the total income. So whether calculating total income, whether I will include the corpus or not, if the income which is being accumulated for the purpose of spending in future year should also be included or not to be included. In my view, this also required to be included here, though there may not be the expenditure. And if you accumulated expenditure for religious purpose and that amount is not been spent for a religious purpose, then that expenditure will not be shown here under the fourth column. These are the guidelines for filling of the form. When before filling of the form, you should go through these guidelines. So many of the points will get clarified there, and probably this will help you in making the application. Now let us look at the form 10AB. This is the form which has been filed. May not be required to file immediately because under current applications would be mostly in the form 10A only, but form 10AB will also come immediately in case of the trust which is granted the provisional registration and is a commenced activities immediately, and in that scenario you may to be application file application as early as in the month of October. So here also PAN number will be pre-filled, section code we have already dealt, nature of activities we have dealt. I will deal with the clauses which were not dealt earlier. You have to give here details of the whether the you have held the property which is in the case of business under section 11.4 or as well 11.4a is required to be mentioned here. Then all bank accounts, details of the bank accounts is required to be mentioned. Then details of land and building or both is required to be mentioned here. Whether you have any object which is other than the uh, general public utility required to be mentioned here. Then the percentage of receipt because you need to then the 215 will come in trigger, and if you spend the receipt more than 25 lakhs or so, then you may not be entitled for the deduction. So that information is also required to be mentioned here. So they ask the details, percentage of total receipts, income return file for the 5 years, which we mentioned. That's all. The other details are the details which are generally required or common is there. We come to the presentation slides which we were dealing with. These are certain issues which I consider which were generally been asked by various people, and we also consider many of those while doing the presentation. Mostly, I think so I covered this, and if any left, we can cover it in the question answers. With moving, what will happen if I am making a application, and what is the way forward or subsequently? So once I made application in Form 10A, the commissioner is going to grant me registration under Form 10AC for the 5 years. In case it is a temporary registration, it will grant me with the 3 years. With the 3 years, and the registration number is in the 16-digit alphanumeric unique registration number, it is to be granted. In case I am not providing the information wholly, fully or partially, then or provide information which is false or incorrect, then commissioner has a power to reject my to cancel my registration the section which is granted in the Form 10AC uh, which has been provided. So when you're making currently when you're making application or the application for the it seems that a deemed registration is going to be granted immediately to you, but the powers has been retained by the commissioner that whenever you're making application and certain information which is there, which you file was incorrect, or you don't have not given the correct information, then the registration will be has been cancelled. It is effective from date when the certificate was granted. For example, you have got the registration under 10A, and after 5 years you have gone for the registration, and at that point of time commissioner finds out some error in the earlier registration which was granted in Form 10AC, then whether my registration will be cancelled from the first day of April 2021 or no. So looking at the current wording of the rules, it seems yes, but need to check whether the rules can, whether these provisions, which are this provision is coming by way of rule and not by way of the power granted to the commissioner to grant rejection or to cancel my registration under section 11 subsection 3 or subsection 4. So in my view, this provision may be to that extent ultra vires the power given by the section 11.3 or 11.4. So when the application is been made in the under the section in the Form 10AB, or subsequent application, we already seen the categories in which when the application is required to be made in the Form 10 AB, the course of action would be for the commissioner uh, or the director of exemption or the respective authority who is authorized to issue the certificate to satisfy the objects and the genuineness of the activities. Just also see the compliance of the requirement of any other law. This is also coming, these two requirements are coming from the observations of CNAG, where you need to see that the genuine objects are genuine, whether the trust activities are genuine or not, and whether the compliance of other laws are there or not. The CNAG has in respect of some of the trust in Maharashtra, while they're carrying the audit, they observed that under the Trust Act, whenever any trust is providing the medical facilities, hospital is there, and uh, they need to reserve some beds for the people of specific class. And even though such reservation is not there, still the CNAG observed that deduction under section 11 and 12 was granted, though there was a violation of the other provisions. The violation of Income Tax Act is not to be considered here. And the time limit is 6 months here also for the commissioner to grant the registration, and that registration is granted in the Form 10 AD, whereas in case of Form A, registration is granted in Form 10 AC. In case there is a rejection, then that has to be specified. In fact, the Form 10 AD mentions that what was when the opportunity was granted for the rejection to the trust, there is no such mention in the Form 10A. In view of this, Form 10A cannot be rejected. Registration is granted to every trust or institution, but it can be withdrawn effective from the date when it is being granted if there is a violence of any of the provisions. This is the applicable to the application to be made under section 1023C and 80G. Provisions are similar to what was there for which we dealt in the case of trust under section 11, under section 11, 12 AB. But only two categories has not been there, which were there for the purpose of the trust. The categories are that there is a section, first proviso to section 11, 11, and the category of that there is a modification of trust deeds or no. In those two scenarios, you are not required to make a reapplication under section 1023 under the section 80G. We'll deal with the amendment which are dealing with the donation receipts. The CNAG in the 2017 has mentioned that whenever some applications are made, whenever the donations are being paid, you should have CBDT should have introduced some automated processes to control the deduction ATG so that incorrect or wrong claims are not being made. To this, CBDT has responded that automated generation of ATG certificates or similar line of traces it's not feasible to implement and would be extremely complicated from the small donors and the small exempt trust organizations to submit such statement. So CBDT has rejected this idea in 2017 in considering the hardship that may cause to the small trusts or the small donors. But this statement they are given away in the year 2020, and they made the amendment in the law, and the new rules are there, and which is applicable from the financial year 21-22, which was applicable earlier for the financial year 2021. However, it has been extended. So whatever donations has been received by the trust, trust need to file the statement for the donations which are received, and then issue a certificate for that receipt of donation. This is seems the similar to what the provisions are there for the online electronic filing of the statement of TDS is there, which is a similar line, similar. It also provided that penalty is 200 rupees per day. So I have required to file the statement by 31st May 2022 for the financial year 21-22, and also required to issue the certificate to the donation receipt in the form 10BE also by the 31st May 2022. So this may create some difficulty, because if I file the statement on 31st May 2022, that processing may not happen immediately, and even if the processing happens immediately, I need to download those all the donation receipts uh, on the 31st May, and then make a uh, and then issue it to the donors. All the statements is required to be filed, signed by the person who is authorized under section 140, and this to be filed electronically. When the application in 10A and 10AB required to be done electronically, by either a digital signature or with the e-verification as may be applicable. With this, we are trying to deal the things, important aspects of this. And now we can have the question answers in next 15-20 minutes, which is allotted to them.
Yeah,
Surely. Ashok bhai,
yeah, I'll take it up.
you can take it the questions.
Yeah, Paras bhai, there are some 44 questions,
Okay.
and few of them have raised hands also. So what I do is I just read out the question. Some of them you've already answered, so we'll skip. But a few of them are interesting. One, Mr. KM Roy asked us, can you claim standard deduction on...
Ashok bhai.
Yeah. Yes.
We should directly go on questions, not the names, please.
Okay. Can you claim standard deduction on rent for trust?
So this is not relevant to this topic at the moment, but I'll deal with it. As I stated earlier, the section 11 to 13 are in the code in itself, and you are not entitled for the any other benefits of the other provisions, the competition provision. But there is a one Bombay tribunal decision which states that standard deduction is available in respect of rent. But with due respect to that decision, I have my own doubts. I have my own reservations, because this is a code in itself. Your income is to be computed as per the provisions of the section 11 to 13, and you can't go to the other competition, because if you take the competition provisions from there, the other competition provisions may also come into picture, for example of capital gains and other things, and which may not be a good scenario for any taxpayer or any trust.
Yeah. The next question is, what criterion should be considered for selection of option by a trust running schools or hospitals between exemptions under 2023C or section 11 while applying for fresh registration under section 12AB?
You need to do comparison between the two things, and the registration for the purpose of 1023 is required only in the scenario, in specific scenario. Religious trusts may not be entitled for deduction under section 1023C. Say the provisions of audit are applicable to both 1023C as well as 11. Accumulation of income provisions are applicable to both, but option to spend in the subsequent year, means 1 year subsequent, is there only for under section 11 and not for the next year. But accumulation for 5 years is applicable to both the entities. But in case if the amount is not spent in the 5th year, in case of 1023 registered institution, you will lose the exemption. But whereas in the case of section 11 exemption, in the 6th year, that becomes a taxable. You have the corpus deduction for both 11 as well as 1023C. Anonymous donation is also applicable to both. But the exit tax under section 115 TD is currently applicable under section 11 and not to the section 1023C. Capital gain reinvestments are not applicable to section 1023C, but which is applicable to section 11. So if there is capital gain and I buy the another capital asset, even that capital asset can also be a fixed deposit. So that exemption under section 11 is available but not under section 1023C. The restriction to the benefit of the specified person. For example, if the author of a trust is there and that has been provided medical treatment, and then there is no restriction under section 1023C, but there is a restriction under section 11. These are the broadly criteria. You need to look into each of these things and then determine whether to go under the section 1023C or 12AB. Once I'm registered, and because there is also the proviso which says that once I'm registered under section 1023C, then registration under section 12AB is inoperative. But that is there is no vice versa. That if I am registered under section 12AB, then my registration under section 1023C becomes inoperative. So these are the
Thank
few
you,
thoughts.
Paras. Yeah, thank you. Excellent, Paras.
Paras bhai, can you stop sharing your screen so that?
Yeah.
Okay. The next question. Also, if we check the form, it says that application for registration and not re-registration. Are we supposed to file form 10A only?
The re-registration form is applicable in form 10AB as such, and first time registration is the form 10A. Nomenclature may not make much difference there.
Okay. In the context of section 13, can a 12A trust enter into a transaction with a company where the author of the 12A trust is substantial shareholder by justifying that such transaction is at arm's length price?
It should be possible. Prima facie, it
The
should be
next-
possible.
A trust runs the only old age home and collects some contribution from inmates. Overall, there is loss which is met with donations. Is it falls as doing business and barred by act, as only activity is old age home and the full donation is utilized for the same? So basically he's saying, will it be considered as a business, this particular activity of
prima facie running a old age home? I don't foresee it's a business, because you are not, unless until that old age home is also doing some activities, like they are creating some greeting cards, they are creating some articles of artifacts or something, and that is been sold in the market, and then section 4 or section 4 capital A of section 11 may come into picture. But running merely old age home, prima facie, in my view, should not be considered as a running a business.
I think this question you've covered, but if I get corpus donation today, then when should we invest the same? I think you've covered, so let's not answer this.
Yeah, okay.
Sir, in this section, can you show how to renew 12? I think you've also covered this renewal part through going through the form. What if corpus is received and it is planned to use it in the same year? Then also investment under 11.5 is required?
That's the section is very silent on the within what time you need to make a investment. As I stated that section 11.5 says, uses the word deposit in any account which scheduled bank or cooperative society engage in carrying the business of banking. So when the corpus donation is invested in the, which is directly coming into a bank account, can it be said as a deposit is investment as per the section 11.5? In my view, this may be possible, and once that is so, that automatic becomes my investment as per section 11.5. Other point what I state that which in absence of any clarity, I should see as on the last day of the financial year, I should see whether my investment of corpus is made or not made.
Yeah, so if he's using the corpus in the same year, Paras bhai, will he be required to do any 11.5 investment or no?
Probably may not be required.
The next question, is there any
But
need,
one more point, it's advisable to do 11.5 donation in the year, 11.5 investment, because in subsequent year, if you are getting some because when you are making an expenditure, you are withdrawing the fixed deposits, and once the investment is withdrawn, and subsequent year, if you are making investment in the higher, you will able to claim the deduction of replenishment of section, replenishment of the investments. So considering that view, I will say that you make a deposit maybe for the short period. So that will be advantageous in subsequent year.
Thank you for the clarification. Faiz. Yeah. Is there any need for opening up a new bank account altogether for depositing corpus donation received?
No.
Also, no. Okay. Also, if I create a new FD notified under section 11.5, should it be specific or earmarked? Any name to be given to such FDs?
As such, there is no requirement of name, but your FD which has been created against the corpus you should be able to have one-to-one marking possible. Otherwise, it will not be considered as the corpus donations investment.
Okay. Whether 10AB is applicable for ATG?
10AB, the form will be applicable to ATG, yes, when there is a renewal after 5 years.
Currently, it will be 10A. No?
10A,
I
currently
think
10A.
he seems to be
90.
confused between 10A and 10AB.
So 90% cases, what you are doing as on date will be 10A form.
Okay. Even for ATG and 12A, both it will be.
Both ATG.
Yes.
So common form is there for ATG, 12A, 12AB and 1023C. And also section 35(1) donations.
Yeah. The next question. For registration of trust, which form to file for ATG? Is it, so I think you answered this. For registration of trust, which form to file? Again, he's asked the same question. If I get a corpus donation today, I think it is covered. Please explain the detail example, the corpus donation slide. I think if when we have time, we can take it up
Okay,
later
sure.
on.
Yeah.
Because we have a flow of questions of 40 more questions. So regarding application of first proviso to section 11.7 for assessment year 2021, the till Finance Act 2019, those charitable institutions which were approved under 1020C and registered under 12A could avail benefits of income tax exemption after fulfilling of requisite terms and conditions under both the sections. Though the Union Budget 2020, following provisions were inserted. Section 11.7 with effect from 1st June 2020, making assessee eligible to either section 12 or 1023 and not under both provisions. Provided he's reproduced that provision and says provided further that the trust or institution registration under his provision apply gets 12AB subject to the conditions that.
It's a very large question, but I
large question.
But in the short, what I understand from here, from what you read me, that there is anomaly for the financial year 2021, where the proviso is applicable, section 11.7 sub proviso, first proviso applicable for that financial year, but registration procedure has been introduced from the 1st April 21. So in that scenario, that is creating anomaly for 1 year. So in that scenario, what to be done? There is no practical answer for this at the moment, but there is anomaly for 1 year. That is the financial year 2021.
Yeah, it's a long question, but I guess you've answered it. What is the meaning of registrar of public trust as mentioned in point 12 instruction to fill up form 12A?
In case of Maharashtra, it could be a charity commissioner certificate. In case where the certain states don't have the trust act, in that scenario, if those trust deeds are registered under the assurance of register of sub assurance, that person's certificate.
Okay, so the next thing is that Rajasthan does not have a public charitable trust act. So what should he do?
It has been practically observed that in the states where there is no trust act, they will go the trust deed which is there, they will register under register of sub assurance under section of the Indian Registration Act, and the certificate which is issued by that register can be used here. Because there are various judicial precedents also available, which says that the registration of trust is not mandatory for doing registration under section 11A or 11AA. So those provisions will also, those decisions will apply in current state also, in my view. So all old decisions will continue to apply here to the extent the law is not modified.
Before 30th June, can we submit re-registration for existing trust under section 11 and also under section 1020C being an educational institute? If yes, do we need to submit the form twice? Because I think we can select only one section or each submission. Please clarify.
Yeah, form to be submitted twice.
I have been granted 12A AA registration on 31st March 2021. Should NGO again apply for registration under the new law?
Yes.
For the documents to be submitted, if we have 12A registration number, but a copy is not available, as same was registered in 1997, how to submit the same? I think you answered this. Yeah, yes. For registration of trust, which form to file for ATG? Is there form 10A? Because I do not find form for re-registration of ATG.
Form
You
10.
dealt, yeah, you've already dealt with this. The very purpose of postponing re-registration amendment introduced through Union Budget 2021 to 1/4/2021 will get defeated. It seems to be an omission, if not postponing the provisions of 11.7, because there is a deep impression that such bunch of amendments related to charitable institutions brought by Union Budget 2020 is shifted to 1/4/21. We seek clarification towards above query with respect to effective date of applicability of both provisions of section 11.7. 1st June 2021 or 1st April 2021. So
I didn't got the question. It's a long question. I missed something.
Yeah, so what he's the same as that proviso question. There is an anomaly. So what he is trying to say is, we seek your clarification towards the above query 1 with respect to effective date of application of both the provisos of section 11.7. Is it 1st June 2020 or 1st April 2021?
Reapplication provision is goes to the 1st April 2021, but the proviso is effective from the 1st June 20.
Okay. Then whether the trust has to file the annual return for donations for financial year ended 31st March 2021 or also also before 31st May 2021. So
no, it is applicable
no.
from the financial year 21-22 only.
Sir, in case of old trust who are not able to trace 12A registration, I think you've answered this, sir. If the original trust deed, being a very old document, does not have a specific clause stating that it is irrevocable trust or any clause for the transfer to another trust of binding, of how to respond to clause 6 of form 2010A.
You write no. I already dealt with this question, but in the form you write no, and also dealt with how you can overcome these provisions.
Yes. Will provisional registration be granted to a trust which was registered under section 12A or 12AA? If yes, how many years will the same be valid?
So if the provisional registration is valid for 3 years and maximum period of 3 years, but you need to reapply within the period of 6 months before the expiry or 6 months from date when the application is, when you're commencing the activity.
Yeah, so the next question
For the purpose of the participants, I kept the slide of the ATG, share the screen for that. You can just go through those in the meantime. I answered other questions so that you will get the clarity on the.
Yeah, you can share the screen to that extent, so they can go through.
Yeah, Ashok bhai, we can deal with other questions in the meantime.
Yeah. What will be the case when application for new registration made on 15 November 2020 and registration is not yet granted till date?
All pending applications will be transferred to this provision, but however, we don't find how this can be done. But all pending applications as per the section provided will be transferred to the new section 12AB.
But will he have to file form 10A for this?
Not at the moment. But the department may ask for some other additional information which is not in sync with the Form 10A at this moment.
Okay. So he doesn't have to file Form 10A.
No,
That's good.
not again is
Uh,
not required.
Whether donation by a trust having 80G certificate to another registered trust under the Trust Act, but not under Income Tax Act, without 80G certificate will be treated as application if majority of trustees in both the trust are common.
You need to look at the provisions of section 11 where the restriction has been mentioned that you can't give a donations. You need to look at those provisions. Since this is out of the scope, I am skipping at this moment, but that may require further consideration that there is restriction of giving the corpus donations, there is restriction of giving the donation to one trust to another trust out of my accumulation, all those things. You need to look at all those provisions and come to the answer.
Whether donation by a trust having 80G certificate to, sorry, this is the same question. Whether donation by a trust to 80G certificate to another registered trust, that is also the same question. Sir, our trust already registered under 12A in the year 2017. Then as per the requirements of new provisions, we have again applied for re-registration in the month of March 21, for which so far we have not received acknowledgement from the department, nor it is found in the My Account tab after login under ITR other forms. What is the solution to this at this moment? Secondly, we have tried to apply for provisional registration under online, for which it reflects assessment year 22-23 only, and not 21-22, which will be required now for this year. Now, what
I
to
already
do?
dealt with this topic, but you need not require to do a registration again because all pending applications as on 31st March 2021 will automatically get transferred to the under new provisions. And if that transfer is happening, then you will get the benefit for the year for the financial year 2021 also.
Are all pages of the trust deed to be stamped and signed, or only the first and the last page?
There is no clarity on it. As per general customs, you can follow it.
A NGO is being registered under Section 8 of the Companies Act, whether it has to be also get self-registered under the Maharashtra Public Trust Act. If it has also to get registered itself under 12 AB, the trust is having address in Mumbai.
12 AB is required. There is no option for it. Maharashtra Public Trust Act, in my view, may not be required, but there is a Bombay High Court decision in 1964 which need to be evaluated in the facts of your case, whether required to get registration under the Maharashtra Public Trust Act or not, because the charity and the registration of such organizations fall under the dual list of constitution. Hence, the law can be made by state as well as by center. Section 8 is under the central law, whereas the Maharashtra Public Trust Act is under state law. And once you are registered under the central law, in my view, you are not required to do a further registration under the state law. And the state law doesn't prescribe for such registration as such.
There is one question: does all trusts require to register under Niti Aayog Darpan website? Kindly clarify.
No, not all trusts are required, but in case you are taking any donations, any receipts from the government authority, then Darpan registration is required. Otherwise, you are not entitled to receive anything.
If a trust is holding PAN as AOP, how it can be amended with retrospective effect? What will be the impact of previous returns filed?
If the PAN you are getting amended, probably there will be two PANs for the same trust. So previous year can be different and the new year could be different. And because you can't change the single letter in the PAN. So once the single letter change is there, so that will be two separate PANs and hence the applicability may differ. The practical difficulty, but there is no answer to it as such at the moment.
If the registration number or of charitable trust under the Public Trust Act does not fit in the boxes provided, with additional boxes be provided?
You can provide it to the extent possible because anyway you are going to attach the certificate of registration, so that can take care then.
An old trust of 1970s had applied for 12A. It got rejected. Appeal filed with ITAT. ITAT gave direction to recheck documentation. Appeal filed by department against ITAT order. Whether reapplication can be filed under 12A, attaching the rejection order plus ITAT order.
Yeah, possible.
What is a Darpan portal? If you could clarify, is one question.
That is Darpan portal is the portal which is maintained by the Niti Aayog. This is the portal where all the not-for-profit organizations registration is available at one place.
In point 7A, we put ATG details as we were applied for 12A. However, when we put the date of registration of ATG as 1/4/13, as we received ATG applicable in 2014-15, the form shows an error as we got 12A order only in March 2014. The error that is shown says effective date cannot be before registration date. What should be the right date to put in that column?
In that, if there is technical difficulty, I need to look into it. But in that scenario, put the date of registration, and in the certificate which you're attaching as an attachment, you mention that in view of this practical difficulty, we have mentioned the date so and so, but in reality, date is so and so.
Do we have to attach all documents with application, or do we have to file physically to the department?
Attach the document with the application.
Do these documents have to be self-certified by the trustees, all of the documents?
Yes.
Now under the new scheme, there is a common form 10A for application for registration under section 12 AB and ATG. Where in the form, where is the form in the form 10A to select about when we required ATG registration also?
You have to file two separate forms. You file the form 12E under registration under section 12AB first, then you have the acknowledgement, and then you again choose the ATG and file the form again.
Okay, you have to file two forms.
Two forms.
Yeah, as on date of application, details need to be given in item number 11 to 19. It needs to be audited. One or provisional will do. If accounts are not prepared and finalized, then 31st March 2020 figures can be given.
This information is required to be provided only if your returns for 3 years beginning ending up to 31st March 2020 is not filed. If you are not filed, then the information required to be given on the date of the application and not the financial year. However, in case information is not available, practically you may try it, but you file the accounts on 31st March 2020, and for the balance broken period, you can give it subsequently when further information is called for.
Paras bhai, we've covered whatever was there till date. There are certain other questions in the question box after that. I'll just read them.
Okay.
What is the concept of minor trust?
I think this is not relevant at the concept, because minor trust is trust which is relevant to the private trust and not the charitable organization.
Yeah. Whatever amendment has been made, what impact has it made on the application of loan?
No application, because that provisions under the section 36A of the Maharashtra Public Trust Act will govern. And on the loan application, what is that we already said that whenever a loan is repaid, it will be considered as application, and not the amount spent out of the borrowed funds will not be considered as application.
Do we need to submit annual report or audit report at the end of the revalidation application 10A?
No such requirement is there, to my knowledge.
Yes. Has anybody received approval under section 12AB approval since 1/4/2021? I think we need not answer this.
We are received approval. Approvals have been received, but certificates are not yet received, but approvals have been received.
The trust required registered with Charity Commissioner for the last 10 years, but registration under 12A can't be registered now. any consequences for old years where trusts were filed as normal AOP?
Should not be there, and the taxation should be the normal, if they're governed with those provisions applicable to AOP, should be done.
Whether the financial accounts mandatory to be submitted along with the application under section 10A?
If you have filed the returns for up to the financial year 2020, not required.
By 30th June, you have to make an application for registration, or you have to get it registered by 30th June.
Make application by 30th June.